So is the term the manosphere still relevant today, specifically for Catholics? And I think today we're going to dive into this because we are clearly experts in this, because we wrote a book called Lovemaking, How to Talk About the Manosphere with Your Spouse. That's actually not what this book is about. But we did write a book called Lovemaking. We're not experts, but we have tangoed with the manosphere and the ideas that have seeped in from the manosphere into different Catholic circles. And today we're going to go over the red flags that you should look out for to see if your marriage is influenced at all by any manosphere thing at all. Sound good?
Yes.
So first, a little education.
I'm going to receive this education because I'm not quite.
Because you're a woman, you're made to receive.
That's right.
No, wait. No.
Too much.
Okay. Lovemaking. Continue. Sorry.
Good. So I'm going to learn a little bit from you because I feel like you have a better grasp on more of the terminology and the influencers and the culture and the things like that. And then I heard from you and I've seen things.
Fun fact, this book that I mentioned earlier jokingly, I think it came because we did a podcast episode on a topic called the marital debt that you could argue is manosphere type topics in Catholic circles,
yeah.
Right?
It's been latched onto by
yeah. And then the person who wrote the foreword for a book, Emily Simpson Chapman, who is a friend and amazing author. I'm sure she draws too. I'm sure she paints as well. She's an amazing author, and she interviewed us a little bit about manosphere stuff, and it's just been something that
she found us from that podcast.
Right.
I think she kind of started noticing what we were up to.
Yeah, then Ave Maria Press noticed that she reposted us, but then she even interviewed us for her own podcast. And so we've always had touch points about this. So I feel like this topic is something that we've talked about a few times in the last 3 years. So I think we're okay to talk about it now. Keep going. The idea is the manosphere still relevant? The answer is not working.
We didn't go back to the other. You weren't.
All right. Is the manosphere still relevant? I don't think it'll work there. Oh, it is. So is the manosphere still relevant? The answer is, can you read that? I made it really tiny.
No.
The answer is no, you can't read that.
I can't read it.
The answer is no. The idea of the manosphere is very gone now. It's not a thing as much as.
Oh, okay.
I'm being serious. Sorry.
People aren't saying manosphere.
I'm going to switch from being sarcastic to I'm being serious now. So no, the manosphere isn't as relevant a thing anymore. So when guys are searching for things, I don't think they ever search for the term manosphere. But the manosphere as it used to be years ago is no longer a thing. Instead, men are still searching for topics like what is the meaning of life, brotherhood, what do they do if they're struggling with dating or their identity, and they will search terms like trad or stoicism, mental health, and red pill. Those kind of things exist.
Okay, I was going to bring up red pill. I was going to ask about that.
Well,
that was another phrase that was used a lot when we were talking about manosphere.
Sure, and it was used interchangeably, but they will search those things up, but not necessarily to be part of a community or culture, but more to look up the positive things you get from those those different communities. If they look up stoicism to learn about stoicism, that's a thing that they can latch onto and learn, but it's not necessarily to be part of a stoicism group.
Yeah. Not to be part of a clique or a group.
Yeah.
You're saying.
So I think a lot of people that look from the outside think of manosphere as a part of a larger community, and I don't think it exists that way anymore. The core issues that men were looking up still exist, but they the way that it's been phrased now is what we see out there now in the internet is the children of the manosphere. So no longer the manosphere is a huge large community, the red pill community, we're all part of this thing, we all buy into the same thing.
The influencers are less when you say children of they were parents then, right? There were
there are people leading the charge of that, and now it's kind of dispersed amongst the people are now they believe the red pill stuff, or sorry, they believe that men need help with certain things, so they target their content to help men with particular issues, and it's no longer but it means you have to be part of this bigger community. It's just down here we're working on dating, we're working on finances, working on marriage, but it's nothing to do with one large community anymore. So the influence is still out there, but it's not you're being brought into buying into the thing. So this is the different pieces of the puzzle of that you could loop. These are the 4 boxes basically that you could put all of the what used to be considered manosphere content. You can now put all the pieces into 4 boxes, and these are the 4 boxes that most of the influencers create content for. So there's dating strategy, so how to get a wife, get a girl. There's still that exists. There's hustle culture, so you could argue things like David Goggins, falls into that, like the hustle culture, the intellectual stoicism. So that's like you could argue that Jordan Peterson falls into that. And then there's also like the faith-based struggle that people have, or faith-based like things that they search out for. That's also its own manosphere take to it. Does that make sense? Am I making sense? Tell me if
well, like they're trying to figure out how to be a man and be a faithful man. Like, what does that look like to like live as the leader of the home, the head of the family, that kind of thing? Is that what you mean?
No. That's like, thank you for bringing that up. So to an extent, but there's like, so when you look at these 4 boxes, like men are looking up, like, I want to know how to be a man. So they might, depending on their stage of life, they might be like, I want to learn how to date and get a girl. Or they'd be like, I want to be very financially successful, or physically successful. I want to be successful. Like they go into hustle culture. Or they want to be like, you know what? I need to fix myself. I need to not be so emotional. I need to be able to be like not so depressed, not so anxious. So they go into like this intellectual stoicism realm to try to fit that. Or they could be like, I want to know about the meaning of life, the existence of God. And then they pursue that.
More philosophical.
More philosophical. And they pursue it in a way that gives them a spiritual superiority over other men. So all of this, you think of it as like dating culture. I want to be a better man so that people will want to date me. Yes, best in all the categories. I want to hustle to the point that like I'm making so much money that there's nobody that can ever think they're better than me. I want to be so control of my emotions and my whole everything I do that like people can't ever think that like I'm a beta male, right? And then same thing faith wise. Like I want to just do all the right faith things so that way like I am. Like people can believe whatever they want, but like I know what's true. I'm better than everybody else because of that. Does that make sense?
Yeah.
Okay. So there's problems with that. And really quickly, I'm going to gloss over it. So the dating strategies, the reason this is negative that's out there. So again, the guys are still searching for this. They may not search for manosphere, but they'll search for how to date. The pros of it is that it can be very empowering for a guy who just has never dated, hasn't had a girlfriend, doesn't know what to do with their lives. Unfortunately, the cons is that it's at the expense of the dignity of women. Because a lot of it is made out to be like if you do these things, if you check these boxes correctly, you'll be able to like manipulate a woman into liking you, and it takes away their value as a person and makes it more like of a commodity that you could attain if you do the right things.
Because it sounds like at its basis, it's not really bad to like look up like, well, how do I be a good boyfriend? Like, how do I find a date? There are some people that are just like, I just don't have experience in this, or what I'm doing isn't working. So it is good to some extent to like want to be better at that.
Yes.
Right. And then it crosses the line once you kind of get into this more manospheric explanation of how to date well, that it transfers from like, how can I be a good boyfriend so that we as a couple, like I can settle down and like, or maybe have like lots of women like me, but I'll be attractive to lots of women. But then it passes over to the effect of like, now I'm going to like body counts and like have many women love me or be attracted to me, or like, how can I say the right thing to get her to do what I want her to do?
Right. Because there's a big difference between like, I want to date so that I can eventually find a wife, right? Versus like, I want to be able to have an elusive power over a woman so that they could all be attracted to me. And I even desire to date, but like, I just want to be seen as valuable to them and desirable, right? So it can be empowering to an extent of like, yes, it's okay to find ways to be a better prospect so that like you could find your wife, but there's the pendulum can swing and switch became swift. Thinking of, never mind.
Swig, take a swig.
But yes, it could swing very quickly to making women a commodity, which then they're becoming objects, you're using them. So that's not positive. The hustle culture, again, that's also great. Like I have enjoyed David Goggins, and I will still listen to his different things at times because there is motivation in like seeing what a guy can do. They're like, all right, look, he's pushing himself. I can push myself too. So like the pros of that is that a lot of men find self-improvement and they learn to pursue success because of people like that. But the problem is that there's a lot of men out there now that grind just for the sake of grinding. Like there's nothing out there like, why are you grinding? Oh, it's just, I gotta be the best. Like for what purpose? Like who are you serving? Who are you loving? Like, no, I just gotta be the best. Right, and like that's not the reason for grinding.
Where again, like for the pros, you're like learning that you didn't have to settle for mediocrity, or that like I've had this impression of myself that I'm like, I've held my own self back by being like, that's not possible. And you've learned that like, well, actually, if I put in some effort and try these things that I thought I wasn't capable of doing, I am, right? And so that could be, again, and that could be in like the exercise culture, that could be in the side hustle culture, that could be even like in your career. So there's some good to that of like, don't settle and keep striving, keep trying to be a better version of yourself. But yeah, like you said, like for what, why, right? Yeah. Like, is it to provide stability? Is it to provide care for just like to strive for sainthood, or is it to just like to just posture yourself to just be and be better than everybody?
Right. Yeah. And I wanted to put these as like there's pros and cons to both, because I think if we say that men shouldn't be searching for this information, like they gain something from these areas. Right. Again, they're not searching manosphere because it doesn't exist as a thing anymore. They're searching for particular topics that they want to grow in.
And some of the results have been influenced by manosphere.
And I would say that a lot of the men, there's a lot of men out there now who are living in Catholic marriages who were influenced by the manosphere shift. So they might still believe some of this stuff. So I think it's important to point it out first, where the pros and cons are. Yeah. And then we can show where the red flags are and how you can kind of figure out in your marriage, like, is this something that you struggle with as a husband, or something your husband has been influenced by? The intellectual stoicism is another one. So it's deeper, like intellectualism, like it's not a bad thing per se. Like you're focusing beyond just the physical, like there's the spiritual realm you're interested in. You want to put things in order. You want to sacrifice. You don't want your emotions to be what controls you. Like a lot of the Jordan Peterson, like putting your life in order, making your bed, like those things are positive as well. Like you don't want to just do things because you're being controlled by your inner self. But the cons of that is that like then there's also a big negative view of emotion, and negative view, especially in the Catholic realm, like a negative view of anything that's not something that's that comes from the inside, and like any tears, like this is not okay. It could be seen as girly, or just like, oh, this is not true religion or whatever. Which I think is important to note, that like just because Stoicism isn't like, just because you're pursuing to not be controlled by your emotions doesn't mean you shouldn't have any emotions. But that's something, again, that the intellectual Stoicism realm of Catholic male influencers, like they're pushing that.
And it's good because like it is good. I think you were saying a little bit, or is the next one the philosophical one? But
this one is philosophical, but the next one is as well.
Okay. So like it's good for us to like, or men to look to like the heroes of the past, or like the to gain from them and to learn from them and be like, okay, these are like historically, this is a good character trait to have. And like that has proven time and time again that like, I don't know, I kind of think of like men of virtue in this area of like taking the stuff in your brain and like living that out, right? But then if we're at the expense of emotional intelligence, then we're like trying to stuff down our feelings, and then that act of repression has also proven to be
it's not good.
Unfavorable.
Right. And the last one is faith-based. So like the pros of being faith-based is that the strength that it gives the hustle culture idea, like, oh, it gives you a purpose. Like I'm for service. I'm rooted in sacrifice. Everything's just is founded on Christ. But the cons of a faith-based, and again, it's not, I'm saying there's a con to like pursuing your faith, but like pursuing your faith in the way that the Children of the Manosphere has pushed to pursue the faith, is that there's a spiritual elitism to that. So like you've seen things plenty on like Instagram and YouTube where there's Christian guys out there who will be like, are you tired of being a fat priest? Are you tired of being an unfit, faithful man?
Yeah.
What's wrong with you?
Yeah. And there's a superiority that you're
and you're like, no. And you can argue that we could argue the message at a different time, but I feel like there is in the male spaces, like there's this elitism of like, I have the faith correct. Like the idea of like ortho bros is another thing that's thrown out there. Like they're orthodox and like this is right, you're a heretic. Like that is another fruit of the Children of the Manosphere.
And I think that they even, correct me if I'm wrong, but it seems like on this con side that they even have these sort of standards of like appearance, and that indicates that I've reached this level of superiority. Like they'll
say things like
their like wardrobe and their
I guess like the way they dress and stuff. I have heard it said of things like the way you look on the outside points to like the virtue on the inside, which is complete nonsense, absolute nonsense. I know such virtuous men who cannot do as many push-ups as me, and like that has nothing to do with virtue.
Right.
Like yes, you could build.
It can be built.
It's for later. It's for later.
Okay. All right.
But just okay.
But I'm correct.
Yes, you're not wrong. There is that.
Okay.
So let's point out the red flags. So this is where I really want your insight into like how this could look in a marriage. But like this is the red flags from each of the three. So like from the dating strategy, from the hustle culture, from the intellectual stoicism, and from the faith-based, each of the 4 boxes. And from that, I want to point out the red flags and like how it affects your marriage, and then how people can kind of discern like, is this something we need to work on? So for the dating, if you are affected by the dating strategy a red flag to look for, is that because this teaches that all women only want a guy of high status and high like their achievement perceived, and then also there's this idea of like to never trust your wife. That like you can't trust her because she's always looking to leave.
Right.
There's this idea of like if you aren't always this high status man, high value man, your wife is going to leave you. So like that. Why are you laughing?
I'm sorry. It just seems sorry. Finish and then I will.
So
make my
they
comment.
See intimacy is transactional. So like I'm doing these things, so therefore you give me intimacy, S3X as we call it here. It's about power dynamics within the relationship, not about self-gift. And then these attitudes breed suspicion amongst the spouses instead of trust. So again, like this is, I don't know what you're up to. I always think that you're going to leave me. So therefore I am pushing to be a high value man so that you always have no choice but to stay with me because I'm just so high value. Yes. And so this is how it impacts the relationship. But then I also want to hear what you have to say.
So I was chuckling, giggling because it just seems so self-imposed that like this issue of trust seems self-imposed because you knew that you tricked her into being with you because you used these strategies. So like, oh my goodness, if she finds a crack in the foundation because I hid it, like then she's going to leave for something better. And it's like, yeah, you set yourself up for that level of distrust, but okay. So
that's interesting. So you like, right. And I think that at some point, if you're married already and you feel like this is an issue, I think like having a husband who's willing to, that you see his struggles and you see his failings, and like, he's not constantly trying to show why he deserves you, which I think is very different than trying to be worthy of you. I think those are two different things, right? To a man who's trying to grow in virtue because he wants to be worthy of his beloved is very different than a man who's trying to show, like constantly trying to like peacock at his wife and show that like, this is why I'm so great because I'm scared you're going to leave me. I feel like those are two different things.
Yeah. So do you want me to share some like,
I don't know, what do you think? Do you have anything else of that? Like
dating, like what I might see that would be a red flag?
Well, what in
this area?
Yeah, in this area.
So I don't know, this might come from like the hustle side, but like one thing that I've seen a lot that can be a red flag is for a wife or like a fiance to not have access or understanding of the financial status of their family, future family. That like if the man is like, no, I'm in control of this, like they don't have access to bank accounts or don't know like what the debt, investments, savings account looks like and things like that. And like on purpose, there are some people who are just like, I'm not good with money, so I just trust. And again, this is like the difference between a red flag versus, but that was the first one that came to my mind.
I also think a guy who's constantly suspicious or untrusting of his wife, and not like in a,
it might be like,
I don't explain
like, why were you talking to so-and-so so much, or kind of keeping tabs on the schedule in an unhealthy way.
And I have a hard time giving an example of that.
So like, I mean, again, more red flags. Like I've heard of women who like, if they are communicating with a coworker of the opposite sex or like just somebody in their community, the spouse or the fiance or the boyfriend gets very, very like defensive and you can't talk to them at all or what have you, versus like a healthy relationship of like, is there a purpose to this communication that like is like, that is focused on what it should be versus becoming more intimate and like you're sharing too much information with them.
Okay. I think also like if there's a lot of posturing amongst other, like if the person goes to your job and they're posturing amongst your coworkers, it's just something that makes them seem like, to show everyone around you I'm a high value man. Like that's kind of stuff that, and again, I don't know if this happens in a lot of Catholic circles. I think this is more for like the audience. Like if this is something that happens in your marriage, this is a red flag that could be influenced by the previous manosphere. But you've said you've heard some of this stuff is happening.
Definitely seeping into Catholic marriages.
Okay. Very good. So next red flag, it comes from the hustle culture. Again, this glorifies dominance, equates our self-worth with money, and treating women as trophies and building identity as status symbols. So if you see the way this can impact a marriage is that it creates a man who neglects his family for the sake of the grind, right? So like you're right. So like because my status and my identity is in my grinding, I'm more likely to put all my effort into that. Have my family as like
a prize,
that like, look, because I grind so hard, I earned this thing. So like they're at home and I earned them, but I'm still going to focus on the grind because the grind is what defines me. Again, and it still seeps into like the dating thing too, of like, that's also what makes you want to stay with me. So therefore I'm just going to keep grinding.
Yeah. And I think, like you said, like a man that puts his job ahead of his family, the needs of the emotional needs, the social needs, the just like quality time needs of his family. And then I also think another red flag would be if the woman has a desire to contribute to the family, like financially, in what, like either in working or just like in as a stay-at-home parent, but also having a side hustle and things like that. And then just like not, I don't want to be seen as the family that has to have a wife that works. And like, again, it's like if there's a difference between a joint goal of we have a stay-at-home parent to raise to have at home with the kids to help raise the kids, but even like, for example, us like speaking together, like they wouldn't like the wife is maybe goes to like applaud the husband at the success of his job. But so again, there it's like it could look the same
from the outside,
family, but internally on the outside, it could look like it could look the same. It could be a husband that has a stay-at-home wife, and they have jointly discerned that that's how their family is going. That's what's right for their family. Versus like, no, you are not going to work because that is embarrassing because I'm supposed to show that I can provide for the family. And
then and you're right. And then they see it as like an identity thing. Like, therefore, is there something wrong with me because my wife has to work or because we don't have enough money? So therefore, right. Versus it being, this is because we discern this and this is the right thing to do or whatever. This is how we want to raise our kids.
So these are relational red flags. Like you would be the one to know if that's being flown in your relationship because of like how these conversations go.
Right. And again, these are red flags that if they are popping up, I hope this is a helpful tool of like this is coming from what used to be the manosphere.
It's been an influence from the manosphere. Yeah.
Stoic intellectual red flags: over-reliance on self-discipline and emotional detachment, mistaken for virtue, seeing suffering as something to endure rather than to unite to Christ, and stoicism can harden a man instead of opening him to grace. I'm going to read this. How it impacts marriage is: a husband who hides behind stoic walls might struggle to connect emotionally with his wife or children. He risks becoming being respected by distant. He risks becoming respected but distant. Catholic marriages demand vulnerability, strength, in a love that is both steady and tender. This is, I think, like the trope of the 80s dad. Or I don't know, what's the dad that's usually like oh, he works hard, he does everything he needs to do, I know he loves me, but he never tells me he loves me.
I think that's like the 70s, like those TV shows. Comes home from work with a suitcase and then sits down and the wife brings him a beer
and then that's that. Right. And that's the
like, but again, he's there but he's not fully present. His whole self is not part of the family.
Yeah. And instead of thinking like this might come just from like, oh, he's growing up and being a dad like his dad, like it could also be influenced by the manosphere topics, because it makes it look like you are a better man if you are, yes, you're 100% a better man if you are self-disciplined and emotionally detached from certain things that you shouldn't be attached to. I think that's right. But when it becomes like you're self-disciplined about everything to the extent that you can't like give up a workout to be with your kids or give up a workout to spend time with your wife, or you're so emotionally detached from everything that you can't be upset because of something that is happening within your family. Like you're like, no, that has nothing to do with me. My wife's going to figure it out with the kids. I'm going to go and continue to do what I'm doing. I think those are the red flags that I think can creep up in marriages without realizing like this is not actually an okay thing. This is not how men always are.
Right.
This is a problem.
And I think like other examples of that would be like if there is something that is a circumstance happening in your life that allows for it, like that deserves stress. I'm thinking like illness or death in the family or like job changes, or I don't know, your best friends moved away, or like something that like you're allowed to feel like like if you're the wife and this is eliciting feelings from you and your husband is like not registering that whatsoever and it's kind of like, what are you making a big deal of this?
Mm-hmm.
Why is this bothering you? We just have to move on. We have to move past this. That might be a sign of it. And then another thing I think that I've seen is if the children are, as children do, like are emotional, they're having a tantrum, they're crying or what have you, and the spouse, the husband is like, we gotta cut that out quickly. We have to shut that down. They can't be like that. So if you kind of see that he's trying to bestow that or impart that on his children, that could be another red flag.
That's a really good one. I didn't even think about that. But right, like being okay with your kids crying. And not just like tantrums is one thing, but even like crying if they skin their knees, crying if they lost in a game. Like, I'm thinking specifically for sons. Like it's okay to have emotions. So if they're uncomfortable with their kids' emotions, I think that's a red flag as well.
Yeah.
Again, it could be a red flag for many reasons. It could also be because they're influenced by this. And last one is this faith-based red flag. So spiritual elitism and spiritual bypassing. Sorry, those are the two parts of the faith-based that can be an issue. So using spiritual language and theology as an excuse to avoid human formation and growth in virtue. People who have this red flag use faith as an excuse not meet the needs of their families. What do you think of that?
Do you want me to read this part?
Sure.
So the marriage impact: a husband who hides behind spiritual elitism and spiritual bypass will avoid doing any of the necessary work in himself and around his home and consider them unnecessary because the spiritual is so much greater than the human. So I think that this kind of comes into play where you might see that. Yeah, I think it's similar-ish to the Stoicism part, but just like, yeah, when they are in the home, like they feel like there's a clear distinction between like the woman's roles within the home and the man's roles within the home.
Which there are to an extent, based on like our discernment, like how we've prayed in this.
Right. Yes. Sorry. Yeah. So like, I'm like, I don't know, finish the sentence yourself.
That's not my role.
Right. Like it's not like a men only do this and women only do this. But I think that you can see manosphere influence creep into the Catholic home when the response is like the woman is the one who only cooks. Now, if you have a stay-at-home parent who's the wife, then yes, based on that situation and those circumstances, she will probably be the one that cooks more frequently. But that is not like a all or nothing. And I think that in the spiritual realm, there is kind of an all or nothing of like, no, that's the wife's job. No, that's the husband's job. No, that's the man's job. No, that's the woman's job.
Keep going. I have an example. Tell me if you think it's right. So, for example, if your kids aren't listening to you, and they say they're the age of our kids, the oldest is 11 and 9, and they're being disobedient, and I say to them, like, you're my child, you need to obey me. But then I never do the work to understand, like, why are they acting the way they're acting? Like, what's going on, or what are they upset about? What's there?
What set this situation?
Yes, like, why are they acting this way? Like, what's going on? And instead, I just leave it as, like, I don't care. You need to obey me. That's a spiritual bypass and spiritual elitism of like, it doesn't matter what the issue is. Yeah. The scriptures say do this, so therefore you must. Right.
And then that is a great example too of why the human formation is important, because like to understand why this didn't go the way that it was supposed to go is the human formation side of it. It could have been they just didn't understand, the directions weren't clear. It could have been they tried and they failed at it and like they thought they were doing what they're supposed to, but like this like immediate reaction of like disobeying is automatically wrong. Were they developmentally prepared for it? Were they emotionally prepared for it? Could it have just been, or could it have been straight disobedience? Like they heard it, they knew what they're supposed to do and they didn't do it anyway. Like
not do what they wanted.
And then the question of like why, right? Like, and I think that this is clear too when actions aren't matching, like when behaviors and actions aren't matching the expectation that the man is setting. So you like have these expectations for your family, but you're like, but you don't. Like, like you expect that, like you expect people to listen to you the first time, and then the wife is like, yeah, but you're not. Maybe in like a different realm, like you're not meeting the expectations that I have for our marriage and our home and our life.
Yeah. So those are the 4 red flags, or not 4. Those are the multiple categories. Those are the multiple red flags within 4 categories that your marriage may experience if your husband has been in some way affected by the manosphere or the children of the manosphere. We should do an episode of what to do about it, because all we did is bring up issues. But I think what you should do about first is begin praying about that and bringing these things to prayer, because grace is ultimately what fixes and heals. It's not magic, but the Lord is definitely can take marriages from wherever they are and heal them so that they can get to where you where he wants them to be.
Yeah. And I also think that it's important to like affirm that if you as the man or you as the woman, like whoever is watching this video and found it and has been having this like, I just knew something wasn't quite right. Again, at the beginning, or this podcast, like at the beginning, we noted that like the desire at the outset was probably well intentioned, right? And was trying to find the right stuff. And then maybe you found these like self-help, like if you do this, this, and this, you'll get what you want. And you're like, but I'm not quite getting what I thought I was going to get. So if that might be it, so then maybe you're on the man side and you're hearing this and you're like, oh, I'm missing the virtue. I'm missing the human connection. I can address that. Or maybe if you're the wife, maybe this is something that like just affirms like those things that you thought were right and you're being told like, no, this is how it's supposed to be. And it just doesn't feel like something in your soul, something in your gut, something in your heart, however you want to label it, felt like something was lacking. This is just an affirmation of that maybe there is something that your family could benefit from. And has been negatively influenced by.
So we'll do a part 2 where we will take maybe we'll take all the red flags in those 4 categories and show how we can bring them into fullness within our faith for husbands and wives and marriages to be able to thrive. But so if you learned something from this episode, please like, comment, and subscribe. If you're listening to us on just the podcast, be sure to leave us a review that has 5 stars in it and a lot of positive things to say. And anything else? No, I just think anything else.
That's it.
And we will see you at the next episode. And we will see you at the next episode.